The CEO Diaries, powered by Harper Ellis Hair Co.
Welcome back to another episode of the CEO Diaries. So I want to start by sharing one of my favorite quotes, and it's that people begin to be successful the moment they decide to be. And I think you are a prime example of this. Okay. So I want you to share your story today. But are you okay with starting at chapter 1?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning, the very beginning. Okay. So tell us what your childhood was like.
Yeah, so I had a really awesome childhood. In a lot of ways that probably people wouldn't expect to be like, oh, that was an awesome childhood. I had two parents that really, really loved me. Mm-hmm. And to this day, as a parent myself, I could not be more thankful for that. I know that now as a 32-year-old, am I 32? Yeah?
I think so.
There's nothing more important than having people that love you to your core and will do anything to see you succeed or see you, do well in life. And, but, my parents, now that I am a 32-year-old, they had tough times in themselves. They were figuring out life as well. And my parents, they actually divorced when I was in 5th grade. And, to me, when there's things like that happening in your life, like there's always a blessing behind it. Initially, maybe not a good thing. And there's so many people out there. Divorce is, unfortunately, a very typical thing in our world. And, but when they divorced, my mom went to be, she's a single mom. She was a school teacher. I always tell this in classes. I'm like, if you guys were raised by educators, you're not rich. Yeah. And, I think looking back, I know that times were a little bit tough for my mom from time to time. And I've seen her back then. She was in her 30s and, close to my age now, which is wild to think about. But I've seen her grow, and now my mom just turned 60, and I've seen her, improve her life over the last 30 years, and I love that. Yeah. And because I remember a time when I know that she wished it was probably different. Yeah, totally. And it's hard when you're a mother and you've got kids and you've got people to take care of, and then you're still trying to figure it out yourself. That's a hard journey to be on because I've been there. Yeah. And then my dad, kind of same with him. There was a lot that I'm sure he was figuring out. Always a hard worker and always someone that both of them provided for us for what we needed. Yeah. But the one thing about my two parents is, I don't know if they purposely taught me this, but they taught me that, if you want your situation to change, you have to change it. Yeah. And even as a child, when, a lot of children, you think, and I'm not trying to empower children in this episode, but really, even as a child, I know that you're under your parents' scope, and I know that your parents' responsibility is to take care of you, but even as a child, you have the power to change things around you. I agree. And, when my mom was, left, and I was between them two with joint custody. Yeah. I spent a week with my mom, a week with my dad. I would actually never advise that. I loved being able to see them both equally, and I know that was the common ground that we settled on, and I think that's great. But I lived out of a suitcase as a child, and I still live out of a suitcase as an adult. So maybe it just prepped me. It just prepped you. Maybe it just prepped
That's why you can pack so fast.
You're right. I can pack in a matter of like that. So, but I was always on the go, and that I think that taught me. It did me better more than it hurt me. Yeah. And so I even though sometimes it sucked, I appreciate it now. Yes. But my dad worked. My dad was gone and not gone, but he worked at he drove a truck for Dolly Madison. Do you know what Dolly Madison is?
I don't know what that is.
I don't know that you're old enough. Patty, do you know what Dolly Madison is? Both of you guys are in your younger 20s, so probably not. Dolly Madison is like a Little Debbie.
Oh, okay.
It was like a different
I know what
brand.
that is.
Yeah, so we still have Little Debbie. I don't even know that Dolly Madison is still on the shelves anywhere. Maybe it is, but anyway, he drove a truck for Dolly Madison, a bakery, and then he always drove trucks throughout his whole life. Pepsi, I think even worked for Coke maybe for a little bit, and Wonder Bread. And that's just what my dad did. Yeah. So we had to get out of bed at 2 and 3 in the morning and go to work and drive the truck and stock the shelves on all these stores. And so he was going to bed at early time, 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. And when my parents divorced, that was probably not ideal for having kids, because he was going to bed and we were still doing Lord knows what. At that point, we can't be tamed, and that's why there are still probably BB holes in the walls of this house that we used to live in. I'm not kidding. My brother and I used to be like, well, we're on our own.
Yeah, you got this.
Yeah, so
game on.
Yeah, but he had to work. That's what he did to survive, and he was just, looking back now as an adult, like, he did what he could to make things work. Yeah. And which with a very inconvenient situation, there's just not, work hours were not convenient, but he did what he could. And so my mom being gone, I had a brother, and my brother and my dad are a lot alike. And, I probably took on some responsibility that I wasn't asked to take on. Yeah. I just wasn't. Like, my parents weren't like, you got to clean the house. This is even though we had chores and responsibilities that they wanted us to do. But I never forget, like, one time I had my dad take me to Lowe's, maybe it was Lowe's, and I bought a bunch of plants. Yeah. And I redid our entire flower beds, because it'd been probably years since they'd been touched. When my mom was a flower bed girl, and when she left, and my dad kept the house that we grew up in, and I redid the entire flower bed. I'm talking like the plastic down underneath the mulch and everything. And he helped me, maybe it was a weekend and he was off or something, and he was able to help me. But I remember my point behind doing that was I wanted to have a friend over, and I wanted the house to look better. Yeah. And so it wasn't like that didn't happen to me at that moment. It happened for me. Yeah. I was just like, okay, this is great. Yeah, like it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I have to fix the flower bed so I'm not embarrassed about the appearance of our home, or it wasn't even about that. It was just like, I have the opportunity to make my situation better, and I did. Yeah. And so a lot of things in my life happened like that, and I wanted to have people over. It was my job, I had to help with the dishes, and I had to help with cleaning the house and making my surrounding better, and I was in 5th grade. And I think now, looking back, I'm 32, and obviously a lot of you guys know what's happened in my life. Like, that has been how I've lived every single day. Like, it is in my power to make everything around me better. Yeah. And I will be so forever thankful for my childhood and how I was raised, even though it wasn't the fluffy childhood that I'm sure Fletcher will get to live and do. And I hope that in some way, somehow, that I can teach him the same lessons that I was able to taught, or was able to be taught, because it taught me so much of how, and that's why my businesses are successful. Like, I every day come in and I'm able to change my environment for the better. And so that's a little bit about chapter 1.
I love that. So kind of break it down a little bit more in context of, like, what are some of those main lessons that you learned by, taking on such responsibilities, or kind of like the woman of the household, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean,
at such a young age.
Yeah. And I've always been a girl's girl, like, really I have. And when I was with my dad, at my dad's, I was with my dad and my brother, and so I had to kind of take on some of the things that, as men, I don't know why we categorize jobs, but we do. Like, let's be real, we all do. Yeah. Even now to this day, I'm like, that's a boy job. I am not doing that. And so, as a very young person, I did take on some things that probably young kids probably don't do. And, I'd help with the house when I could. I wasn't very consistent. I'll just tell you that. I was a kid a lot. And so, kind of being that person for my dad, because my mom, she met someone else and got remarried, and I'll be forever thankful for that. I have an amazing stepdad. And but my dad actually never did move on, and or he probably moved on, but he didn't remarry or date or bring anyone else in for us. And so I kind of felt as a child that I needed to be that for my dad, because to me, there is such a purpose in life for a man and a woman, and they both serve such powerful purposes. And I'm not talking about it's the woman's job to be home and doing the dishes, and I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about...
Because that doesn't work this way.
I'm going to tell y'all right now, in my household, I don't do the dishes.
Yes.
My husband is mostly doing it. Thank God for you, Josh.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's such a purpose in life for a man and a woman.
Yes,
and,
I agree.
you know, kind of being that for my dad to be able to help out when he was trying to work so hard to provide. And I just felt that sense of... I felt that he needed me. And now looking back, I don't know that he did.
Yeah.
You know, he may or may not have, but I felt needed.
Yes.
And so when I did felt needed, instead of me being sort of a victim to that need, I was excited to be able to provide and help out. Yeah. And so it's just crazy how when you grow up and things, you know, now I have all these businesses and all these things, and that's how I do my everyday life now. It totally shaped me into what I am now.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned that, you know, with your mom being in education, he was like a truck driver and always having to like work. And like, so I take from that it's probably not the highest income household.
Definitely not.
So how did that affect you and kind of what your vision for your future wanted to be like, or did it? Yeah,
I mean, you know, growing up, I remember like to us, there were little luxuries about life. You know, our family vacation most years were like, we'd go to SeaWorld in San Antonio, which you guys don't judge me. This is where Blackfish came out and all the things. And if you've watched the recent videos, you know that I really have a passion for being a whale trainer at SeaWorld. I won't go into that now. But we did that a lot.
Yes,
so
yeah.
That's where
that's where your dream come from. I like it.
And so, you know, little luxuries, you know, our family always tried to take us on vacations. Yeah. And, you know, we had what we needed, and that was a luxury. Yeah. And, you know, I never went without, but I watched my parents work so hard, both of them equally, and my mom, you know, being an educator, and that's why I'm I'm so passionate about educators, especially in our school system, public school systems, because they're so mistreated. Yeah, like, they are. It hurts my feelings really bad because I've watched my mom. She gives and gives and gives to these kids that aren't even hers, and you know she loves them, and clearly she don't do it for the money. No, like girlfriend's got her master's degree, and I've made probably more money than her since I was in my lower 20s. Yeah, and so. You know, she obviously does it for the love of those kids, and she's so very passionate about what she does, and she's good at it. And so growing up, I kind of got anger towards that. Like, you know, I can't lie, and I'm not even sure that I've ever said these words to my mom, and if you're listening, thanks for, I guess, you know, kind of creating this path for me, because I always got kind of angry, because even in the summer, she was a coach, she was a basketball coach.
Benching you all the time.
She benched me. I needed to be benched. Let's be real. Yeah. But you know, she was constantly sun up to sundown. She drove a bus in the morning because that was extra income for us. She drove a bus in the morning, so my gosh, she was leaving the house at 5 a.m. And then she was getting a coach. So sometimes it was 10 o'clock before she would ever get home at night, and so. You know, no matter how hard she worked, no matter how many hours she put into the job, making more money was out of the question. And I hate that for educators, because we would have more of them. You guys are wondering why we're short. I know my mom's school specifically, she just told me yesterday, her school the Portsmouth school system is short like 40-something teachers. And I'm like, the system is so broken. Yeah. Like, you guys, these are the people that are providing education and shaping our children to be what our future is going to be, and we don't want to do something to we don't want to tax ourselves, we don't want to do something to give them more money. Like, that's another episode for another day, but I get really angry about it. And so the whole system is just so freaking broken. But she, no matter how hard she works, she never makes more money, and that's always really hurt my feelings. And I hate that, because I knew it shaped me, because you know there were times that I knew that my mom lived paycheck to paycheck, and that's no secret. I know that she would say that now, but you know, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to live like that. And there's been times that even I have made a lot of money. You know, my salary was large, or I was making a ton of money behind the chair, and I was still paycheck to paycheck. And I think that that's a lot of people are.
Yeah.
You know, we just got back from Miami this past week, and someone was explaining that to us. Like, you still make a lot of money, you're still paycheck to paycheck, and it's just because of how we operate and how we do things. And so that's why, not to plug the sell here, but that's why I'm really, really excited about the Legacy program for 2024 with Harper Ellis, because I want to change that.
Yeah.
With hairdressers, I want wealthy hairdressers just be bopping around town.
Yeah. Hey, if it doesn't do it, there's nothing's going to do it.
No, there's not. It's
I'm
going to be
so
awesome.
excited.
Maybe we'll do an episode about the program.
Maybe. Do we want one? You let us know.
We want one.
All right. Okay, so, you know, clearly you work really, really hard. And you've worked really hard to get to where you're at now. Well, tell us a little bit of those jobs that you took on. Kind of tell us about the ages you took on those jobs, you know, before you even started the hair industry. Because I know you have some fun ones that
I do have
amaze me.
jobs.
Some of them crack me up. Like, let's just talk about those for a minute.
Yeah, I always worked. Like, my first job I was at 15, and my parents just was, you know, like, you want gas money, I was really obsessed with all the expensive jeans, you know. When,
Was it Buckle at the time?
Well, Buckle was the secondary option, but then, you know, Abercrombie came out with theirs. They weren't too expensive, but then Buckle did come out with, like, the Miss Me's and, like, all the cool ones, and, like, they were $100 and something. My parents thought I was delusional.
Yeah.
And as, you know... I
had to have my grandma buy mine.
Right. So
my mom's like, no, that ain't happening.
Well, I had to get a job to get those jeans. So
thanks, Grandma.
So driven by fashion.
Yes.
So yeah, my first job was at the golf course in Muldrow. It's actually not even open anymore. I'll probably put it in bankruptcy. Who knows? I'm just kidding. But I worked at the front. I just served those old men Coca-Colas out of the Coke machine and whatever we were selling inside there, and I had a blast. I cleaned the carts. I put them up at night. I closed it down. But I'll never forget my first paycheck. It was $167.48, and
one pair of jeans.
And that was like one pair of jeans.
Yeah.
But you know, at that time, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can make more money.
Yeah.
Like I can. It made me an animal because I loved that feeling of like I have the power to, you know, because as a child, I always was put in situations that I could not control.
Yes. Yeah.
And that taught me that I wanted to control my situation always. And so that job was my way of controlling, you know, how much money I had, and God forbid the $167 wouldn't even feed you sometimes this day and time. But, and that was, I think, for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks I had $167. Girlfriend was rich.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I then went to serving tables. I figured out after that job that serving tables was going to be the way that I could make a lot of money and not a lot of time.
Because you can also get tips.
Exactly.
The better you are, the better the tip.
Oh, serving tables is if you don't have a college degree, if you don't have a career path, like I would wait tables to this day, and I'd be the best damn waitress there was, and I'd be doing just fine. Trust me. And so I've always felt good that I have that to fall back on. And then I waited tables most of all of my life until I went to cosmetology school. And I did that through cosmetology school. My very last job serving tables I actually got fired from. That man, I think I was just a total smartass to him. And
it was your fault?
Definitely, probably.
Okay.
Well, he was just kind of aggressive with me on a mistake that I honestly just made.
Yeah.
And whenever he got kind of hateful, then I was like, I probably said something that offended him. Actually, I know I did. And he fired me. So I was like, okay. So that was during cosmetology school. I had rent due. I was living up there. That was an hour and a half away from where I'm from. So I wasn't living at home. I had a roommate, and I had to pay rent. And I was like, well, what am I going to do now? Yeah. And so I'd actually started applying to the first job that I ever got in the hair industry, and that was in Las Vegas. And I hadn't heard back yet. I didn't know that I had the job, and I had a friend that her dad owned funeral homes.
Yeah.
And he
You're
was
gonna
like,
love this story.
He was like, I mean, I think he took us to dinner one night. He was like a cool dad. He like was really involved with all the kids, and so I went to cosmetology school with his other daughter. And Megan, if you're listen to this, tell your dad, shout out. But he was like, you should come and just do hair and makeup for my clients. And I was like,
clients? Question mark?
Question mark. I think your clients are dead. He was like, you're correct.
You're
they are dead. So I'll just tell you, I didn't last very long at that job either. He didn't fire me though. I had to quit. It just was a rough one. I was all right when they were old and like 90 years old, and I was made up stories in my mind like, oh, sweet Betty, they probably lived a nice
really
life.
Good, nice
life.
Yeah.
She was probably ready to go to the Lord.
Yeah.
But then when there was like some younger people, I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Can't do this, yeah.
And so luckily when I decided I could not do that anymore, hey, they paid well though.
Yeah.
Paid well, and they didn't complain.
Yeah. They don't. Probably family.
The clients did not complain.
Yeah.
So, there were some pros and cons about that job for sure, but it taught me a lot. Like before that job, I was like kind of freaked out about death.
Yeah.
And I think that job, I don't want to die right now. We're getting morbid here, but that job kind of changed my perception. I can't talk. Perspective.
Yeah.
Perception or perception.
Perception. Yeah, either one. Honestly.
On death, and just kind of got me to a place of, I don't know. It was good for my character building. So, did that, and then finally, right after that is when I applied during that time was when I applied for my job in Las Vegas, and I've talked a little about that in the last episode, and that job was really hard for me to get. I had to basically beg for that job, and I had to be like, I will clean your toilets.
Yeah.
I will do whatever you want me to do, just hire me. And I really wanted to work for this guy, and I got that job, and I moved out to Las Vegas. I told my mom, I'm like, pack up my car, I'm moving, and she's like, where are you going to live? I'm like, I have no idea. I was going to figure that out when I got there. Yeah. She was like, that's not really how that works.
But good luck.
So, granted, you guys, this is 2009.
Yeah.
So, a different day and time than now. But I found a roommate on Craigslist.
Oh, that's safe.
I totally
I'm happy for you.
Yes.
I'm glad you're still here, actually.
I found a roommate on Craigslist, and I had 2 prospects, and when we were going to get to Las Vegas, I had appointments set up with them, and my mom and I were going to interview. One sweet lady that I actually chose, she was in seminary school, which when my mom heard all that, she's like, oh, that is a front. She's going to kill you. Like, this is that. She's just pretending to love Jesus, and later she's going to kill you. And I ended up picking her, and she turned out really great.
Really good.
And, we didn't have the same, she was like a dietitian also, and we didn't have the same diet. That was kind of hard. But it was fine. We weren't like great friends, but it worked out perfect. Like I rented a room upstairs in her house, and I had my own bathroom room, and I utilized her kitchen, and basically I just worked all the time. Yeah. But then my other person that I interviewed, she actually worked for BCBG, and had this like...
What is that?
BCBG? Like the fashion line?
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought I was up to date on everything. Guess not.
Like the fashion line, BCBG.
Yeah.
And she'd worked for them. She lived in LA and then moved to Las Vegas, which everyone was moving to Las Vegas at this time because recession hit and you could buy this huge house for nothing. It was insane. Like I wish so bad I had money back then because I would have bought something and then resold it now and be a millionaire. Yeah. And so, anyway, so I didn't go with her because she was like never home. And she lived in this really nice big house that she had no furniture in. Yeah. She had a really cool pool. Would have been an awesome situation. However, like my mom was like, you are 19 years old. I'm not letting you live in this house by yourself pretty much all the time because she traveled back and forth to LA back. And so anyway, nice lady. I'm sure she would have worked out great. Actually, I think I interviewed 3. There was another guy. His name was Jared. He's still on my Facebook. We comment on each other's stuff sometimes, but it was him and his girlfriend at the time. I think they're married now. Yeah. They lived happily ever after. But my mom was just like, kind of weird. They're dating. Like, you'd kind of be imposing on their relationship. Yeah. But they were so nice. He's an architect.
Well, I guess it may have worked out for the best.
Yeah, it was great. They're married
know?
now. I probably
Yeah.
would have totally destroyed their, I don't even know, just being this annoying 18-year-old. Just like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm here to live.
Yeah.
Here's my baggage. So wild times. Like
Yeah.
and looking back now, 32, like I would never let my son do that. However, my mom knew. Like I was just trying to make it work.
Yes, yeah.
And I couldn't afford to go out and get an apartment on my own. And my mom had no option of giving me cash every month to help me pay rent. And so I didn't know how much money I didn't take this job for money.
No.
I didn't even know what I was going to get paid. And
Yeah.
I mean, he told me the pay, but it wasn't much.
Yeah.
And so that was my way of making it work. And I did. And then, I moved out from my Craigslist roommate and got another apartment that was really awesome down on Las Vegas Boulevard. And life moved on. And so, but yeah, that was kind of my journey to get to Las Vegas and stayed out there and
So that got you, from childhood through your teens, it got you started in the hair industry. So from the hair industry, can you kind of tell us a little bit about your story of like, we know you've been in Vegas, you worked there for a while, like, where did you go from there to where you're at now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people don't know where my extension background came from.
Yeah.
And I've actually never told it publicly because, hello, judgment. But I'm in this part in my career where I don't really care about judgment.
Yeah.
And so I just am who I am. Love me or hate me. That's just where I'm at. So when I lived out in Las Vegas, I had a group of friends and we had so much fun. I mean, we were literally, I turned 21 when I lived out there. And so there you go. I mean, perfect age to live in Las Vegas. Like, and really and truly, I had so much self-control because we all know the things that happen in Las Vegas. Like, I never got in trouble. I never did anything else. But I respected what I did every day as a job. And so there was such that fine line of like, go out and have fun. But like, I had to be present every day at my job. And so, I got into, hanging out with kind of a friend group that introduced me to one person and the other person. And I actually started, like, getting really interested in extensions. And I got certified with a company. I won't say it just because it doesn't matter. But it was, like, a keratin bond company. And I fell in love with hair extensions. Like, there was one or two people in the salon that would do it every once in a while, but they just didn't do it all the time. And I was like, this is something. Like,
why are you not doing this?
This is Las Vegas. Like, people want hair.
Yeah.
And so, just from like connections and being here and there, I started to make a clientele with professional dancers.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Good
words.
People
Good
that
words.
get paid to dance, like maybe on a pole or something.
It's casual.
And so they became a lot of my clients.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God. I mean, these girls were coming in paying cash for all this hair extensions, and it was like a thing for me.
Yeah.
And I became this thing of like, I was the hair extension girl.
Yes. Yeah.
And, if I would have stayed in Las Vegas, I 100% know that I would have taken over that entire area with hair extensions.
Yeah.
But it wasn't long after that. Like, life just happened, and there was a point in time where my boss and I weren't seeing completely eye to eye. And, not that he was in the wrong or really that I was in the wrong. It's
just different.
We just went different ways, and I moved back home. I'll never regret moving back home. But when I got back home, Fort Smith, Arkansas, I've never seen hair extensions. I mean, they have, but, And so I moved back home, and I love, because every day on my Facebook memories, like all these clients post, like honestly, my work was horrible too back then, but compared to what it is now. But I have all these before and after photos of these clients, and this was back in 2010, 2011. And I was doing these weft extensions, and that's where it all started.
So you got us through your story, through Vegas, and then you told us you're coming home. So once you got back to Fort Smith, like, did you just open up Salon 504 immediately, or what did you do then?
No, I mean, coming back, I like had $20 to my name.
Yeah.
Like, I had enough money to buy my dad a plane ticket to come out there and get me and all my stuff and drive me back to Oklahoma. And so when I got back, I was like, well, I went to Cosmoprof, I guess it is. Yeah, Cosmoprof, and I bought like enough color. On my way back, I like posted about me coming back. I had nowhere to work.
Yeah.
I had no idea where I was going to do hair at. I posted, I'm like, guess what, Fort Smith? You know, I'm coming back, and I'm going to be doing hair in Fort Smith.
It's all about that marketing.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, back then, no one was doing marketing. And so I took over quickly because no one else was doing that, and I saw a gap there, and so I was just like... And so I basically had a book of clients before I ever made it. It took me 2 days to drive back from Las Vegas to Oklahoma, and I had an entire like weeks full of people before I ever even had a place to work.
That's awesome. And
I got back in town, and, you know, being here through Christmas and like, you know, holidays and stuff, I had saw this cute little shop downtown. And it was called Distinction Salon. And as soon as I got back, I found out who the owner was, went in, I'm like, I'm looking for a place. She's like, yeah, I have a booth open. Okay, awesome. Ended up being kind of a weird deal. Like, a lot of the stylists didn't work. Like, they rented booths there, but they didn't actually work. And so I basically had the salon to myself all the time. And so it was perfect because I was already double booking and triple booking and doing things that stylists also weren't used to. And so it was great. I was just filling up all the chairs that were my clients.
You just used everybody else's that they were paying for.
Yeah. And so
why not?
Right. And so I, you know, went to Cosmoprof. I got enough color to basically. I'm sure my mom gave me a few bucks. She had to have. I didn't have any money, and so I basically bought enough to take care of those clients, and then that's when it all started. And I started, you know, just racking in all this money, and, you know, I know within my first year back, I made six figures.
Yeah.
I was terrible with finances. I blew it as soon as I got it. I never even figured out, other than filing my taxes, how much, and a lot of it was cash, so I don't even know how much money I was making. When I got back, I was doing really well. I'll never forget. The first thing I did, I went out and bought this cute little white BMW. Terrible idea. Do not do that, people. It wasn't that expensive. It was a used car and whatever else. But, you know, I really thought I was high on the hog. But no, I spent 8 years renting a booth and figuring it out. I knew that the goal was to open a salon because I wanted a team so bad. When I was in Las Vegas, I had a team, and I missed that environment and that culture. And but there wasn't anything in Fort Smith that I was gonna do because there was nothing in Fort Smith like what I wanted to open. And so between that time, I actually started dating my ex-husband, and we got married. He lives 3 hours away from here. I moved off, and that's a whole episode in itself. It does not really matter.
It's the past.
But we divorced after 3 years, and within that last year of marriage is when I started to open up the salon here. All within that time, I was coming back to town and keeping my clientele up, and I just lived this crazy life where I was always on the road. But we actually refinanced our home for me to open the salon because, again, I had no money. And you know, I've started every business that I've ever had from $0. And that's what I think is important for people to understand. Like, you know, you don't have to have money to start a business. You don't. Like, you do at some point. You got to figure it out. You got to find the money. But I did. I found the money. We refinanced the home. I got a little cash back out of it. And that's the money I used to open the salon. And last year, the salon was 5 years old. And I walked to that bank, and I paid off that loan in full. And now it's a debt-free business. And so... yeah, it's really amazing. And so I, you know, it's you just have to figure it out.
What is the saying you say all the time about just do it and figure it out later? Or what? I know it's better than that. What is it?
I don't even know if it's the exact, make the decision now and figure it out later. Is what I always say. Because my businesses and my success has all come from my ability to make a decision. Like, you guys that are like, oh, I'm going to think about it, or, you know, and I hear it all the time with, like, Harper Ellis Education, when stylists are like, oh, I'll think about it. I'm going to talk to my husband. That's my favorite. Because I'm like, you girls ain't going home talking to your husband about it. Let's be real. And some of you might be, but, you know, it's always something. It's like, we're going to think about it. We're going to, you know, do this. But I'm like, no, my success completely came from my ability to go, no, this is the decision. I'm making it, and then I'm going to figure it out later. And so, that's with money. That's with everything. Like, I will purchase things and figure it out later. I just made a $480,000 purchase, 3 days ago?
Oh, yeah.
And, not the most comfortable thing.
Yeah.
And so I am going to figure that out later.
Yeah. And I'm excited about it. And every one of you should be too, because you're going to be able to tell the difference of where that money was going to.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You just wait.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, we've kind of covered pretty much your whole story up to, because we all know that shortly after opening the salon, we opened up Harper Ellis Hair Co.
Yeah.
And, I think we all know the story here.
Yeah.
We've talked about that a lot. So I kind of want to go from a different perspective of we've talked about this story, but can you explain to me, or how has this story impacted your vision for not only yourself, but also for Harper Ellis Hair Co.?
Yeah, I mean, I love the post that my Instagram made. My Instagram is my team made it for me.
it does it itself.
My Instagram made this post.
Yeah.
But no, on Sunday, it was like, tell me a lie that you tell to yourself.
Yeah.
And what I loved about all those comments, it was just like, a lot of limiting self-beliefs. And I was just telling Aubrey this in the airport. I was actually with Aubrey and Casey Hicks. And if you guys know the relationship there, Aubrey's on board with me. Aubrey gets me. Mm-hmm. Casey Hicks is a man, and he looks at me like I'm crazy sometimes. But after explaining myself, he was like, no, I get it. But I know that I have this superhuman power. Mm-hmm. I know that I have a crazy ability. Mm-hmm. And what my ability is that I have the ability to make anything that I want come to life. Mm-hmm. There's two things with that. I owe a lot of that to God, because I think that that's how, and not to get preaching here or, but I love Jesus Christ, and he's the reason why I'm able to do the things that I am. Mm-hmm. But he wants that for everybody. Yeah. And so what I mean by that is my ability is something that he's given me because I take full advantage of the gifts that God has given me. Yeah. And everyone has that same opportunity. Mm-hmm. A lot of people just live their entire lives. And never realize it. Yeah. And so I take my ability and I make things happen. Yeah. And they're hard. They're hard things. They don't come to me overnight. You guys just see the aftermath. You see the multi-million-dollar businesses. Mm-hmm. You see the team. You see the nice cars. You see the lifestyle, the flying around the U.S. all the time. You guys see the things that are the highlights. Mm-hmm. You don't see the bullshit that I've had to deal with behind the scenes to make things happen. Yeah. But through all the hardship and through when things get tough, I've just kept going. And I've ignored people and I've put my blinders on and I've made it happen. But that's what I did in my childhood was, little things. It compares totally to what I do now. Like the jeans. My parents are like, you're crazy. I'll buy you one pair of those jeans and I'll never buy you one again. But I wanted a ton of those jeans. Yeah. They were going to change my life. Yeah. And they probably did in some ways. Yeah. As ridiculous as that sounds, I made that happen. I went out and I got a job and I got one that would pay me enough to survive and buy me some of those jeans. I made that happen. Mm-hmm. I was one of probably the less fortunate financially kids in school, and I guarantee you I had a better wardrobe than anybody. Yeah. But I made that happen for myself. Yeah. And so that's the way I've always lived my life. Yeah. I just make it happen. You see it, you make it happen.
I agree with that. Yeah. So a lot of this is talking about, your childhood adversity and some of the things you've had to overcome, which I feel like you've had a lot of adversity, not even just childhood, but a lot of the times when people are faced with adversity, they shut down and they just kind of ride out life and just, woe is me, or, I'm just destined to be this way. What is that advice? What is your advice for those people into, stepping into their future and changing what their future is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I would love the opportunity to answer this in the most non-fluffy way. Yeah. Because I feel like everyone gets these fun quotes and these fun things when people are asked questions like this. But seriously, just stop being a victim to what happens to you. Yeah. Because I promise you that every little thing that is inconvenient, hurts you, is painful, you could call it a roadblock. all of those things are things that really do benefit you and will benefit you if you allow it to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just yesterday I had a phone call, and if this person's listening to this podcast, I love you so much. But I had a phone call, and it was a friend, and she's starting a new business, and she was just so discouraged because she told someone else about her business idea, and then they basically, within the next 24 hours, like went and launched it online and did all these things. Yeah, but that's just how people operate. But after I got off the phone, and I gave her the best advice I had at that moment, but after I got off the phone, I was like, that don't happen to you. That happens for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because now this person has stuck their neck out there, and now you have every opportunity to go do it better.
Yeah.
Like, go do it better.
They get to be the trial run.
Yeah, they get to be the trial run and make themselves look silly. Mm-hmm. And then you get to come out on top. Like, so every little thing like that, even though, like, things happen, you're stabbed in the heart, and you're just like, oh, and it discourages you and gives you, steps backwards. It happens for you, not to you. Yeah. Trust me.
I love that.
In business, I've had so many things happen, and this is a whole nother episode, but a lot of you guys don't know that when Harper Ellis started, we almost went bankrupt within the first month. Mm-hmm. And we trusted a manufacturer, and they sent us over, I think, $150,000 worth of bad product that we could not resell. And then when we approached them, they wouldn't do anything for us. And I could have quit. Mm-hmm. That could have been the end of Harper Ellis Hair Co., and we would have not been the business we are today, which is a $10 million business. Yeah. And so that could have happened to me and not for me, but no, it happened for me because it allowed me to go, all right, I'm not effing around anymore, and I'm going to go find people that I can trust because I know they're out there, and that can help me produce the product that's going to be even better than the original one. And that's what happened. Yeah. And now we're a $10 million business, and we're about to be a $100 million business. And so it happens for you. Trust me. Just, you got to take the punches and keep going.
I love that so much. And with that being said, we're going to conclude this episode. Be sure to tune in because I have an idea about what the next one's going to be, and you will not want to miss it.
Legacy program?
Maybe.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye.